A and B are watching one of those nature shows on TV where there's a narrator describing what's happening in nature, in the wild, saying something like, the cheetah hunts its prey. C today is going to be the narrator. So what does that mean? C's sentence won't be spoken in spoken Korean, right? Don't speak like this. So I will show you what C is going to say, but of course, C is a person who is paid to speak on TV. Okay, so of course, there is nothing more professional than that. So therefore, whatever C says will be said in professional Korean. So don't speak like C. And moreover, the format is also going to be in honorifics version number 1. Yes, a format of honorifics that is not used that often in spoken Korean, right? It can be used in poetic Korean or also professional Korean. Okay, so now what you see on the screen is there's a mother wolf and her young, her baby, and they are being attacked by other animals, whatever that is, a tiger or whatever. Okay, so C is going to say, the mother fights to, sorry. Actually, wait, we're not using a bridge. So I will write it again with the black marker. Sorry about that. 나리, 안녕하세요. Okay, so C is going to say, the mother fights to protect her young, her little baby. Okay, so of course no articles, no us and thus. We have mother as the subject, and what is she doing? She is fighting to protect, fight to protect. So when you're placing to in between two verbs, yes, we are not going to separate them when it comes to part of speech. If one of them is the verb, yes, they will all be the verb. And what is the target of some kind of a verb? What is she protecting? Yes, her little baby, her young. Okay, so now we're going to start with mother. Of course, now when you're talking about people, you can use 어머님, 어머니, 엄마. Okay, so there is nothing wrong with using 엄마, but when you want to be extra formal, 어머니, when you want to be extra formal, you can say 어머님. Of course, there are more details to this dynamic, but to overly simplify things for now, I'll put it that way. So there is nothing wrong with using 엄마. It does not make you rude. However, yes, if you want to be extra formal, 어머니. If you want to be extra formal, you can say 어머님. However, we're talking about a wolf, not a human being. So in that case, you can say 어미. 어미. Okay, so this is what we're going to use right now. 어미. So, 어미. Mother. But just because we're talking about animals, not human beings. So I'll write animal in parentheses. Okay, and if this was spoken Korean, I would have moved on, right? Without giving the subject a subject particle. However, we are not speaking spoken Korean, so grammatical rules will apply differently. Okay, so in spoken Korean, you do not use subject or object particles for no reason whatsoever, right? Those are the rules of poetic Korean. Now, in real-life situations, you need a very specific reason to use it. And yes, reason number 3, if you are speaking professional Korean, yes, That is also a situation in which you can give a subject particle just because it is a subject. Okay, but once again, in spoken Korean, that is the last thing you want to do. But yes, we are not speaking spoken Korean. So I will give a subject particle for no reason, just because it is a subject. So I'm doing it because of the format that we are in, professional Korean. And for the same reason, yeah, I'm giving the subject a subject particle because we're speaking professional Korean. I'm going to do the same with the object. So when you're saying an animal's young, a baby, but when you're talking about an animal, not a human being, then we're going to say 새끼. 새끼. And once again, yes, I'm going to give it an object particle because this is not spoken Korean. Okay, 어미가 새끼를. Okay, so now we're going to go to, yes, the verb, fight to protect. Now we did talk about what we have to do when we place to in between two verbs, right? You do have to be very careful when it comes to using to, right? It depends on whether you're placing it in between a noun and a verb or in between two verbs, right? So it was quite complicated. Why was it complicated? Because what did it look like when you're placing it in between a noun and a verb? Do you remember? A noun to verb. So what do I mean by noun to verb to begin? Yeah. What do I even mean by noun to verb? When you want to say, I don't have time to waste. I don't have a reason to go. I don't have a coat to wear. Okay, so in that case, then you have the order between the noun and verb reversed, and you give the verb the L ending according to the rules of inflection route number 2, right? And then, yeah, you place the noun. Okay, so that's when you place to in between a noun and a verb. However, now we have a completely different story when you're placing to in between two verbs, right? A verb and a verb. Okay, so for example, when you want to say, well, I bought, let's say, a book. I bought it to read it in the plane. Bought to read. So in that case, it's a verb and a verb. Well, in this case, you either will use version number 1 or 2, right? Version number 1 is, yes, have the order between the two reversed and give the first verb, the pink verb, the 려고 ending, right? 려고 ending, of course, also according to the rules of inflection route number 2. However, there was an exception to this, right? Now, even though you have two verbs, if the blue verb, the first verb in English, but the second verb in Korean is either come or go, then to looks different, right? So, yes, if it's either come or go. So in this case, yes, you do have two verbs, but it's a unique situation. When you're doing this, right? So I came to find my friend. I came to find my friend. So in this case, it was 러, right? You have, once again, exactly, 러. And once again, inflection route number 2. So, 오다 or 가다. Now, there are even more exceptions, right? More variables, but because that's not the main topic, yeah, let's only talk about what we have right now. Okay, so now what's always the reason I say Poetic Korean is the format of Korean that is taught? I always say that, right? If you see a format of Korean that is being taught, then it's usually Poetic Korean. Okay, why is that? Because it's the easiest to learn and it's the easiest to teach as well. Now, why is poetic Korean the easiest to teach? Of course, you can find reasons in all aspects. Vocabulary, pronunciation, reading, writing, even listening, in all aspects. However, inflection is no exception to that. Inflection, in other words, known as conjugation. So why is that? Because now, these endings that I showed you, in order to use them, you have to understand the concept of inflection, right? For example, if I'm gonna say, I made this to, let's say this. I made a cake to eat it tonight, whatever. So in that case, eat, 먹다. I cannot just immediately attach 려고. I have to understand the concept of inflection. I have to understand why disappears and why steps in. And then now I can attach 려고. For example, let's say I brought a blanket and my friend says, what's the blanket for? So I'm going to say, I brought it to lie down. I want to lie down. So in that case, also I have to understand something called inflection. I have to understand why in this case I have to remove ta, but remove the b as well. And now u steps in instead of u, and then 려고. Okay. So that's why when it comes to using endings, you have to understand inflection. What is inflection? Yes, changing the ending of a word to indicate grammatical function or attribute. Once again, it's irregular. So you have to understand what to do depending on what word you have and what ending you have. At first, it looks completely irregular, chaotic, arbitrary. But yes, once you understand two rules, inflection route number 1 and 2, it's not that chaotic, right? There's a pattern to it. Okay, so anyway, now, then why am I talking about inflection? Because once again, I said inflection is no exception when it comes to being a reason why poetic Korean is much easier. Because there are endings that I call no-route endings, right? What do I mean by that? They are endings that you can just immediately attach. You don't have to understand why suddenly steps in and why the b disappeared and then u steps in. You don't have to do any of that. You can just remove ta and then immediately attach it. How convenient is that? But once again, now, unfortunately, most no-route endings don't belong to spoken Korean. They belong to either poetic Korean, professional Korean, or soldier Korean. Okay, so there's a version of to. There are actually versions of to when you're placing it in between verbs that you don't use in spoken Korean, but you do use in other formats of Korean, and it's a no-route ending. 고자. Okay, so in this case, 려고, 너. Now you have to understand the rules of inflection route number 2 to use them. But what if I'm using this version of to, which is a no-route ending? I don't have to do anything. I can just remove ta, immediately attach it. This is why poetic Korean is the easiest to use, because most no-route endings belong to poetic Korean. Now this can be used in poetic Korean and also in professional Korean. Okay, so we're gonna do this today. So what I'm going to do is, yes, I'm going to have the order between the two verbs reversed, protect first, and then fight. So a version of protect, 지키다. And then, yes, once again, I said it's a no-route ending. So what is a no-route ending? An ending that you can just immediately attach after you remove 다. So it would be nice if you have a lot of no-route endings in spoken Korean. However, unfortunately, that's not the case. So 지키고자. Two. And then fight. Yes, a version of fight that you can use. 싸우다. Let's use 싸우다. Okay. But of course, I can't just use the 다 ending, right? 다 is the display form ending. It indicates that this is just a form that I can only use to display on the dictionary. I cannot use it. So I'm going to give it the actual form present tense ending. Okay, so right now we are speaking honorifics version number 1. Now, if I was speaking honorifics version number 2, which is used for spoken Korean, a way of speaking in which your sentences end with yo, then I would have applied the rules of inflection, and I would have removed 다, add an extra vowel and form a double vowel, and then give it the yo ending, the actual form present tense ending. But right now, we are speaking honorifics version number 1, a way of speaking in which your sentences end with 니다 or 니까. Now, in honorifics version number 1, the rules are, if you want to give a display form the actual form present tense ending, well, it depends, right? If it ends with a vowel, you immediately attach the no route ending 비니다, 싸웁니다. Okay, so let's take a look at the whole sentence. There are 4 things that, yes, make it very, very clear that this is not spoken Korean, right? Number 1, the subject particle. Why is it there for no reason? In spoken Korean, you would have never done that. Number 2, the object particle. So the subject particle, object particle, and the version of 2 that I'm using, and yes, the format of, well, the ending that indicates the format of Korean that I'm speaking, honorifics version number 1. So the format, 비니다, the version of 2 that I used, and the subject and object particle are 4 components that make it very, very clear that this is not spoken Korean. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? We're about 19 minutes into the live. Okay, so now let's move on. So if you're newly joining, and if you're, let's say, you want to keep up better, well, yes, you can go to either our YouTube channel to catch up and better keep up, or you can go to the PDF files that lay out the curriculum that was designed to have you escape poetic Korean. Both you can find through going to my TikTok bio, because you'll find links there. Okay, so now let's actually go to A and B. And once again, the only reason why C spoke professional Korean was because C was the narrator who was speaking on TV. So C was speaking professional Korean. Now, B and A are just 2 friends watching TV, so they will speak spoken Korean. So B. Now, once again, we were looking at other animals attacking a wolf. Well, a wolf, a mother wolf, and her young. Okay, so right before something was about to happen. Now, yes, it could be a little bit disturbing, but let's say, yes, well, something was about to happen to the wolves. Now, B, yeah, turns it off, turns off the TV, and says, well, I didn't want to watch that. I can't watch, this kind of thing well. So that's how you would say it in Korean. Wait, let me try to fit it in here. Okay, so now, of course, in this case, B is not saying I am not good at keeping my eyes open. Of course, that's not what B is talking about, right? There's an emotional barrier here. I don't want to watch the mother wolf being severely hurt or even more than that in front of her young, or vice versa. I don't want to see the young being severely hurt or even more than that in front of its mother. I can't stand that. So when you want to say that, you can say, I can't watch this kind of thing well. That's how you would say it in Korean. Okay, so of course no I. Of course I'm talking about I. I'm the one who turned off the TV. So we have can't watch. And when you're placing this kind of, or that kind of, or what kind of, or even some kind of in front of a noun, thing in this case, do not separate them when it comes to part of speech, which means if the noun is the object, this kind of follows it into the object position. So we have the object, this kind of thing. And then we have the adverb, well. Okay, so, yes, now we're going to say object, adverb, verb. Object, adverb, verb. So, we know how to say this kind of, right? Place 이런 in front of whatever noun you're using, this kind of book, this kind of movie, this kind of person, whatever. This kind of. And then when you're saying kind of something, this kind of, that kind of, what kind of, some kind of, and when you're placing thing, have call play the role of thing. 이런 거. Okay, yes, and always when you're placing call, sometimes you can see it have an extra S, right? Now we already know what the difference between the two is, right? You can keep the extra S for no reason whatsoever in poetic Korean. But in real Korean, you only keep it for 3 reasons and only for those 3 reasons, right? So, yes, we'll talk about it again in the future. That's not the main topic at the moment. So, 이런 거, this kind of thing. And then, well, 잘, and then can't, 못, let's place 못, can't. Okay, and then watch, 보다. So, yes, 보다, but I can't use a display form, right? I can't use the 다 ending. I can't use a display form. Why is that? Because a display form means nothing, therefore it does nothing. Okay, so I'm going to go give it the actual form, present tense ending. So let's go to inflection route number 1 to go get it. Okay, so we are in inflection route number 1 because we're trying to use the yo ending. Okay, so what are the rules of inflection route number 1? Exactly. If you have a display form that ends with the o vowel, once ta is removed, you apply a 3-step formula. Yes, remove ta, and then add an extra vowel that no longer, add an extra vowel and form a double vowel that no longer sounds like o, but now sounds like wa, wa. And then you can attach the ending, 보아요. So now we have the actual form, present tense of watch, which is watch. Okay, so now I can actually place it in the 문장 sentence, right? So now we have the whole 문장. 천천히 읽을게요. I will read it slowly. 이런 거 잘 못 봐요. 이런 거 잘 못 봐요. 이런 거 잘 못 봐요. I can't watch this kind of thing well. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속 넘어갈까요? Should we move on? Okay, well actually, now, before we move on, thank you, that's very generous of you to say, thank you. Now, before we move on, actually, I'm going to touch on something that we actually did a couple of times, but let's just do it again. Now, yes, there are actually 2 other ways, well, in large, 2 other ways of saying can't with a verb, right? Yes, I can either place 못 in front of the verb, but I can also say can't by giving the verb an ending at the end, right? There are in large two endings that you can use for that. But once again, why aren't we using can't as an ending? And why are we placing mut in front of the verb? Because I always emphasize this, right? Using can't as an ending is either too poetic, or it is sometimes also used in spoken Korean, but it has to be when there's some kind of a very, 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 very dramatic situation. So it automatically sounds too dramatic. So I can only use it in situations like this. For example, what's the example that I always use? Let's say someone says, hey, you have to win this game because if you don't win this game, I have all of your friends hostage. So you will never see them again. You know what that means, right? So, yes, then I'm going to say, oh, I'll never see them again. So you'll do something horrible to them? Well, then I can't lose. So that's a very, very, very dramatic situation, right? So if I were to use can't as an ending, yes, that has to be the level of drama that is involved in the situation that I am in. Okay, so now if I just casually say, well, let's say my friend says, hey, let's go get some pizza tonight. And I say, I'm sorry, I can't go. I'm kind of busy because of work. Now, if I use can't as an ending, my friend could be a little bit baffled, right? My friend could say, huh? Like, oh, like you're very, very resolute right now. Well, I was just saying, let's go get some pizza. Like, where's all this serious energy coming from? What did you think that was going to happen? It's just a little bit of pizza. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Okay. So, it sounds too dramatic. It sounds like I'm saying, hey, there's a magic spell that has been casted on my house. If I leave the house, it burns. So I can't leave the house. So it sounds too dramatic. Okay, so now, once again, if I were to remind you of the whole 문맥, the context. So, A and B were watching, on TV, two wolves being attacked by other animals. And right before something was about to happen, B turned off the TV, saying, 이런 거 잘 못 봐요. Now, A, on the other hand, is going to say something along the lines of, hey, I was watching that. If you don't like it, just leave the room. Just look away. Do something else. I was watching it, though. Okay, so A is going to say, I was watching it. Okay, so it looks like a short sentence, and it is. However, we're going to do a couple of things with it. Okay, so usually if you take into consideration the three-step rule when it comes to building sentences, grasp context, and if anything is too obvious according to the context, omit, and then translate with the words that you have left. Now, if you are going to apply that three-step rule, well then I usually is the first to go. Right? Because I is usually too obvious. If someone says, hey, you look tired, and I say, I didn't get much sleep last night. Of course, I'm talking about I. You asked me, and you said I look tired. So, now, but if I do keep something, for example, I, that seems to be too obvious. Now, usually the reason for that is because, I want to give it a particle, right? Okay, so, So why would I keep I? It kind of feels too obvious, right? 저. Yes, because I want to give it a particle. But yes, we do have to understand the essence of particles, right? So, now, it's not just about emphasis. It's what you want to do with it. So, right now, I'm going to use a difference particle. Yes, there are 5 reasons why you can use a subject or object particle, and there is, for now, in large, a reason why you can use a difference particle, right? And once again, through conventional methods, these are known also as topic marker particles, but we all know that, yes, we don't use that term here, right? Calling them topic marker particles only work in the exam textbook poetic format. So once you step outside of that format, if you try to understand them as topic marker particles, you run into too many exceptions left and right. So we're going to use one of these particles that indicate that something is different from something else in some sense. Now, what is that something and in what sense? That's in the context. Okay, so now, yeah, I'm going to give it a difference particle. Because I'm saying, hey, you don't want to watch it, but I'm different. Hey, I want to watch it, and I was watching it. Come on. So, I'm saying 저는, so I'm indicating that I am different in the sense that I was watching it, I was enjoying it. Unlike you, you are different. You are a person who was not enjoying it. Okay, so now I'm sure that some of you remember the very early days of these TikTok lives. So, in the very early days of these TikTok lives, yes, it was a lot of battling this difference particle, right? Because it's no one's fault. I'm not saying someone is in the wrong here, but whenever I wrote 저 as I, yes, we used to get a lot of comments saying, no, it's actually 저는. 저는 is I, right? Because through textbooks, this so-called topic marker particles, of course, we're not going to call it that, was spanned left and right for no reason whatsoever. Because you can use it for no reason whatsoever in textbook poetic Korean. So, too many sentences in a very textbook-esque way spanned this difference particles too much. Like, I like summer. I like apples. My name is what? I am Derek. Whatever. Okay, so in real spoken Korean, this has the function of indicating difference, right? So that's why I always say, be very careful when it comes to using, especially these 6 particles, right? That's why I say don't use them. In spoken Korean, you don't use them without a specific reason, because once you place one of them, they are doing something very, very specific. So, what's an example that I use a lot? Let's say I'm talking to a 사람, a person, and whatever the context may be. Let's say I learned Korean through, well, in a textbook form, a textbook poetic kind of way. So I thought that 는 doesn't really do anything that specific. So now I say 저는 친절해요. I am friendly, and it can also sometimes be used as polite. 저는 친절해요. Now, what did I do? I actually started a fight here, right? In spoken Korean, that is. Okay, in spoken Korean, because rules apply differently, I actually started a fight. Because I'm saying I am different for being friendly and polite. What does that mean? Who am I different from? You're the only one here that I can compare myself to, which means that I'm saying you are not friendly to me. Okay, you are not being polite. So, well, now, you could say, well, that's what I wanted to say if this person was really being rude to you and you were really trying to call them out for being rude. But what if this person was being nice? Now, I'm saying, hey, you're not being friendly or polite to me. So this person could be very confused, right? So this person could say, like, what do I have to do? Do I have to like kneel and talk to you, treat you as a king? Okay, so does that make sense? So that's why particles in real Korean, they apply in a very different way. So you have to really understand what they do. That's why I say don't use them without a very specific reason. Does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Okay. So 저는, so I'm saying, hey, you don't like watching this kind of thing? Well, I do. I'm different from you. So, and yes, we're going to use the verb watch, but first, and of course, no it, of course, the show that we were watching. Okay, now we have to give it first at least two endings, right? We're going to give 보다 at least two endings. First, we have to give it, yes, the present participle ending, ing, and we have to give it the past tense ending. So, now, don't worry. I will explain this 7,000 times if needed, so don't worry about this. But when you're using ing, you at least have to keep in mind the big four reasons, right? Number one, when you want to indicate that something is ongoing. He is sleeping. I am running. I was watching. Okay, so me watching it was ongoing. So why did you suddenly turn off the TV? In that case, it's 고 있어요, right? The no route ending, 고 있어요. Wait, let me push it to the left a little bit. What's reason number two? When you want to form a gerund. So what is a gerund? When you're taking a verb and you're giving it noun properties so that now you can use it as a noun. For example, when you say, I like coffee, but I can take the verb swim and give it ing so that I can use it as a noun, as an object. I like swimming. So gerund, 는 거. What's reason number three? When you are indicating some kind of a reason for an adjective. So what do I mean by that? Reason for an adjective. When my friend calls me and says, do you have some time? No, I'm busy working. Okay, busy working. So, yes, I'm busy, an adjective. What is the reason for that? Because I'm working. In that case, 느라, or depending on habit, sometimes just people have the habit of using the long version, 느라고. And number four, when you're indicating some kind of a build up to a verb. What do I mean by build up to a verb? When you're saying, I would rather die fighting. Fighting. So, yeah, die, verb. Now, I'm saying I would rather die fighting. I'm gonna fight, fight, fight until that eventually builds up to my death. In that case, 다, or also depending on habit, 다가. Depends on habit. Sometimes you run into people who like using 다, some people 다가. Okay, so yes, right now we are using ongoing because A is saying, hey, I was watching it. When you turned off the TV, yes, me watching it was ongoing. The act of watching it was ongoing, so you shouldn't have suddenly just abruptly turned it off. So I want 고 있어요. Okay, so first, let's give it the ing present participle ending when you're indicating that an act or some kind of a state is ongoing. Okay, so it's a no route ending, which means that all I have to do is remove 다 and immediately attach it. 보고 있어요. So 고 있어요. Remove 다 and immediately attach it. 보고 있어요. However, this is not how I want to end my sentence, right? Now, I shouldn't have made it all the way to 요, because if I do make it all the way to 요, it means that I have ended the sentence. But I still have things to do with this sentence. I have to indicate past tense as well. So, the past tense ending belongs to inflection route number 1, right? So let's go to inflection route number 1. So if you're newly joining and you want to catch up and keep up better, you can go to my TikTok bio. There you will see a YouTube link and also PDF files, including PDF files that, yes, lay out all the rules that constitute the rules, all the rules that altogether constitute inflection route number 1 and 2. Well, yes, it's a term that I made to explain the concept of inflection, also known as conjugation. Okay, so now, what did we have? We have 보고 있었어요. I'm sorry, 보고 있어요. I'm sorry, I by accident just gave out the answer. But anyway, okay, 보고 있어요. So now, once again, I'm sorry, we have the ing ending, but if the ing ending is not how you want to end the sentence, in other words, when you want to use a couple of more endings at the same time, you have to know when to stop, right? I said don't make it all the way to yo. That means you've ended the sentence. So, yes, the trick is when you have an ending that has a double S somewhere, that's where you stop. Okay, so, yes, the double S is where you see a sign that tells you, hey, you've done enough to indicate the first tense. You wanted to say ing, I get that. Okay, you've done enough. So if you want to use another ending, here is where you move on. So I will move on. So now, the next ending that I want to use is not a no route ending. It's a route ending, which belongs to inflection route number 1. So we're going to apply the rules of inflection route number 1. And the rules are, if something ends with S, the ta was already removed. In this case, in most cases, we're going to apply a 3-step formula, right? Outside of typically for now 5 exceptions. Yes, there are 5 exceptions in which something ends with S and you have to attach an ending to it and you have to apply a 4-step formula. However, we are not in one of those 5 exceptions, so I will apply the 3-step formula, right? Remove 다, place a or 어 as the irregular middle section, and then 드디어, finally, you can attach the ending. So remove 다, 다 was already removed. So go to step number 2. It's not going to be a, right? It's going to be 어, right? So 어, and then now you can attach the ending, the 써요 ending. 보고 있었어요. So now what am I doing? I gave it the ing ending, but also the past tense ending. So I'm saying was watching. 보고 있었어요. 보고 있었어요. 보고 있었어요. Okay? Does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. So, now, once again, what if this is not how I want to end my sentence, though? So, what do I always say? What do we always emphasize here? I always say, you have to close your eyes and imagine that you are the speaker in that situation, because by doing so, you can take into consideration all the small, subtle, delicate factors and have them help you decide how you will say what you want to say. So, figuring out what you want to say, it's just the start. How are you going to say it is the real question. So, close your eyes, imagine that you're A. So, what really angers you? Let's say A is a little bit annoyed here. Hey, I was watching that. So, what if B didn't know that I was watching it? Then I wouldn't be annoyed. I'm just going to say, oh, yeah, I think you didn't know I was watching it. Can you please turn it back on? The reason why I'm annoyed is because, hey, I was sitting right next to you. I was watching it. So, of course, if you're going to turn it off, at least ask me. So, what am I trying to do? I want to imbue the nuance of, I am saying something that you already know as well, or at least you should know as well. So I want to say, hey, come on. You knew that I was watching that. Why didn't you, at least ask me? You knew that I was watching it. Exactly. We're going to use the nuance ending, 잖아요. Exactly. Exactly. 잖아요. So, once again, this is not how I want to end my sentence, because before I end the sentence, I want to imbue that nuance. So, we're going to use the nuance ending, 잖아요. That has the function of imbuing the nuance of, I am saying something that you already know as well, or at least should know as well. Okay, so now, 잖아요, once again, is a no route ending. what is a no route ending? An ending that you can immediately attach as long as there is no 다 in the way. Okay, so we're going to immediately attach it. But first, do you remember what I just said when we were using the ing ending? I said, if you're using an ending that has a double S somewhere, and if that ending is not where you want to end the sentence, then the double S is where you stop. So stop here. So 보고 있었. Okay, now the double S once again tells us that, hey, you wanted to say ing and was, right? We get it now. I get it. Yeah, you've done enough to indicate that. So if you want to use another ending, this is where you move on. So I will move on. Once again, 잖아요 is a no route ending. What's the beauty of no route endings? You can just immediately attach it to whatever you are attaching it to, as long as there is no 다 in the way. We got rid of 다 a long time ago. So immediately attach it. So I'm saying 보고 있었잖아요. 보고 있었잖아요. 보고 있었잖아요. So now I'm saying, hey, I was watching it, and you knew that I was watching it. Come on, what are you doing? Okay. So now we have 저는 보고 있었잖아요. Was watching. Okay, and yes, you know as well. I'm saying something that you know as well, or at least should know as well. Okay, so all together, now we have the whole 문장. 천천히 읽을게요. 저는 보고 있었잖아요. 저는 보고 있었잖아요. 저는 보고 있었잖아요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Should we move on? Thank you. Thank you. That's very generous of you to say. Thank you. 감사합니다. Okay, okay. So once again, professional Korean, spoken Korean, spoken Korean. So don't speak like this. The only reason why C can speak like this without sounding extremely awkward is because, yeah, we know that C is working. Okay, so C is the person speaking on TV, the narrator. Okay, so at first, 천천히 읽을게요. 어미가 새끼를 지키고자 싸웁니다. 이런 거 잘 못 봐요. 저는 보고 있었잖아요. With more 속도, speed, 어미가 새끼를 지키고자 싸웁니다. 이런 거 잘 못 봐요. 저는 보고 있었잖아요. With extra 속도, 어미가 새끼를 지키고자 싸웁니다. 이런 거 잘 못 봐요. 저는 보고 있었잖아요.